So thank you very much for inviting me. First of all, I just want to offer apologies that Councillor Zafar can't be here today, this afternoon, due to a family bereavement, but he's asked me to substitute for him. So what I just want to do is run through, provide you an update of where we're up to with Birmingham's Clean Air Zone, talk about some of the reasons as to why we need to do it, and where we're up to, and also importantly, the support that will be available, financial support that will be available to residents, SMEs, and also the taxi trade, which are the three key groups that we'll be providing support to. So the first thing to talk about is that poor air quality is killing people in Birmingham. It's killing people nationally. Hopefully over the last day, 24 hours, you would have seen some of the coverage we've got around some of the challenges around poor air quality and how that's also impacting Birmingham. And the reason it's an issue for Birmingham is that around about 50% of all the journeys into Birmingham every single day are by car. And cars are the single biggest cause of nitrogen dioxide, which is what we're hoping to address through cars and vehicles, what we're hoping to address through the Clean Air Zone. And one of the really telling statistics here is that around about 3.8 is the average number of journeys per weekday in car-using households. So that's every single weekday people are making 3.8 journeys in a car. So in many ways, a lot of those journeys are preventable. So the Clean Air Zone is not about penalising people. And the other thing to be really clear about is that Clean Air Zone is not a congestion charge. The Clean Air Zone is only there to incentivise the people driving the most polluting vehicles to change and do something different. So the majority of Birmingham's fleet are cars, so 83% I was talking about before, and around about 46% of the NOx emissions in the city are generated by diesel cars. So there's a real immediate challenge and an issue here that we can actually do something about through the Clean Air Zone. So the Clean Air Zone is part of a much broader strategy that we've got to improve Birmingham's air quality. And it's built around three sort of very simple principles. So reduce, so wherever possible, we want to reduce the amount of journeys that people are making, especially those that travel through the areas with the poorest air quality. We want to encourage people to use alternative forms of transport, walking, cycling, using public transport. And again, just to be clear, we're not expecting everybody to do that. And for a number of people in this audience here, I appreciate that's not always going to be the easiest thing to do, but wherever possible is to think about using the alternatives wherever you can. It's the right journey using the right mode of transport. And then finally, improve. So we want to clean up the emissions of the trips, which are essential, encouraging people to be driving more cleaner vehicles. So the Clean Air Zone also sits alongside a broader transport plan for the city. That's due to be published next week as part of decisions that are going to Cabinet. And in that, we will set out a broader, longer-term plan that will encourage people to, it's based on a couple of broad principles. The first is about we want to get the city moving and we want to keep the city moving. We are conscious that congestion is something that people talk to us about regularly. So through the Clean Air Zone, we expect fewer cars to be using the roads, which will make it easier for people to get around. But also we want to keep the city moving. So that means we need to be trying to look at ways in which we can shift to more sustainable forms of transport. And the other big principle that's built into this as well is the idea of the movement of people, not vehicles. So wherever possible, we're trying to make it easier for people to get around the city rather than focusing on vehicles per se. So we've already done a lot of work ahead of the launch of the Clean Air Zone, and overarching all that work around clean air is the Brum Breathes communications and engagement campaign. It's there to help set out the message. We want this to be a positive change for the city. Again, we're not here to penalise people unnecessarily. One of the things that Councillor would say if he was here is that if nobody pays the charge, we'd be really happy, because it means that people have converted their vehicles, or they're using alternative forms of transport. The vehicle fleet has become a lot greener and a lot more compliant. So, Thank you for that technical input. So some of the things we've already done, we've launched the car-free school street scheme. We're piloting that at 6 schools at the moment. So that's where we're closing off the streets outside of 6 schools in the morning and in the afternoon, and encouraging parents to walk a little bit further to school. It creates a safer environment for the pupils, but it also helps clean up the air. One of the other areas that we need to look at around that is the use of no idling campaigns as well, because there are lots of people that park outside of schools and they're idling, and if people turn off their engines, then actually that would be a big help as well. The massive investment have gone into cycling routes, again making it safer and easier for people to cycle around the city, and we're already starting to see a really good uptake of those. There's been a significant investment in terms of the Big Birmingham Bike Scheme, where we've been offering out free bikes, but importantly what we've been doing is providing tuition about how to ride bikes safely, but also how some of the maintenance that people can do on those as well, because once you've got a bike, it can be tricky for people just to change tyres, do simple maintenance, so we want to make that whole journey as easy as possible. And we are providing additional resources to support children with cycling as well, because again, it's one of the sorts of things, if we start early, then you build in really positive behaviours from the beginning. So the clean air zone itself. Yeah, you're recording it. Okay. So the clean air zone itself, Birmingham's gone for a CAS D, so that's the highest form of clean air zone. Leeds have gone for a CAS C. The difference between the two is that Birmingham will be charging private vehicles. So in terms of being compliant or not, the guidance we're giving is that if it's a diesel Euro 6, so that's anywhere from around about September 2015 onwards. For petrol vehicles, it's Euro 4, so that's roughly from 2006 onwards. One of the important things that has caused the delay to Birmingham's clean air zone is a reliable source of information for people to be able to check and ensure that their vehicle is compliant, and that's due to be provided by the DVLA. That was supposed to be available in March of this year. The earliest we will get access to it is December, which means that we've had to take the very pragmatic decision to shift the launch date to the middle of 2020. But ahead of that, we'll be doing a lot of information sharing, and we'll also be launching the applications process for exemptions and mitigations, which I'll talk about a little bit later. So as you can see, the area that's covered by the clean air zone is roughly the city centre. It's the area bounded by the A4540. So if you come off the A4540, that's essentially you will be in the charging area. Anything, if you're travelling around the ring road, you will not be charged to travel. Oh, no, wrong one. Okay, so in terms of the package of support, it's broadly split into 3 very large packages with lots of different sort of smaller packages that sit underneath that. The total amount of funding that we bid for from government was around about £35 million. And that's split between 10 million for workers in the CAS, earning less than £30,000 per annum, 10 million to support HGVs, coach fleets, SMEs, in particular SMEs, and then roughly £15 million, which is broken down into 3 different lots for hackney carriages and private hire vehicles. We've been doing a lot of early work and engagement with both SMEs and the taxi trade in Birmingham. So we recently did a telemarketing campaign out to around about 3,000 SMEs, just asking some questions about the size of their fleets, the types of vehicles they've got, so that actually we can be talking to the retrofit market and starting to seed those retrofit solutions, because we're also conscious that there aren't enough retrofit solutions out there. So we're trying to encourage that and get that wheel turning sooner rather than later. And also with the hackney carriages and private hires, we've done direct mail out to around about 4,500 Birmingham licensed taxi drivers, encouraging early expressions of interest, and so that can help us to fine-tune some of those packages as well based on that sort of feedback. The window for the applications around the exemptions and the mitigations is due to open in January of next year, and the intention at the moment is that application window will open for around about 3 months, so from early January through to the end of March. that will then give us the time to process the thousands of applications we are expecting from Birmingham's businesses and residents, so that we can get those processed in time that people have answers before the zone goes live. We're also conscious that that not everybody will be able to convert or retrofit solutions to their vehicles, so we're thinking about the option for, within the charging order that we need to publish shortly, of having an exemption for people that have signed up to have a retrofit, so that they've got more time to get their vehicles converted in time. So then this is broadly speaking how the mitigations break down. So I've already talked about some of this in terms of how that works. And we will be investing a significant amount of money to ensure that people know about these things as well, because it's really important that as many people know and get the opportunity to apply. So there'll be radio advertising, direct mail to households, digital advertising, every single possible opportunity. We'll be working with trade associations as well to help share that information and encourage people to actually apply. In addition to the mitigations, there's two groups of exemptions. The first group are ongoing exemptions. So it was important that we recognise that certain vehicles, certain vehicle types or certain groups require a little bit of extra time. So these are the 5 groups that we'll be launching with as part of the charging order. So disabled passenger tax class, motorcycles, show vehicles, historic vehicles and specialist vehicles. And then there's another group of short-term exemptions, so that's anywhere between 2 years to 1 year. So there's a range of those covering both commercial vehicles but also individuals and residents. And it's just important to note that residents within the CAS, that's for if they have a non-compliant vehicle. It's not all residents, because of course this is only about non-compliant vehicles. So the other really important thing for the business community is the amount of infrastructure that we're putting in place as well to help encourage more people to convert to alternative fuel sources, alternative technologies. So there's a huge amount going into the Tynesy Energy Park in terms of refuelling. There's a huge amount of work that we're doing around retrofit solutions, which I've already talked about. We're also going to be investing money in hydrogen buses and refuelling in terms of trying to seed the market for those sorts of solutions. We're due to roll out at least 200 additional electric vehicle charging points over the next 12 months to 18 months. But we'll also be promoting all of the existing charging points that are out there, so we need to just map all of those so that people know where they are, so it's easier for them. There's also a huge amount of work that we're doing with the Chamber of Commerce, where we're hosting, with this event it's being hosted today. They've been very, very supportive in terms of helping us get out and talk to the business community, and so we're doing a lot of partnership work with them, and that we'll be doing more with them in the run-up to the launch of the Clean Air Zone. And there's also a lot of resources that are available through the Brumbreathe website. It's brumbreathe.co.uk. in terms of business planning, business travel network, and that's especially important for employees of businesses as well. So, like I said at the beginning, the Clean Air Zone is just one solution in a much broader picture, much broader strategy that we've got to improve Birmingham's air quality. It's also important to note that we're not doing this on our own. We also have to work with partners such as Transport for West Midlands, but also the Chamber of Commerce as well. And this just starts to set out the interconnected nature of what we're trying to do here in terms of improving Birmingham's air quality. So it's about making it easier for people to choose a different option, and then encourage the market wherever possible. So finally, in terms of next steps for the Clean Air Zone, the infrastructure for the Clean Air Zone is being rolled out at the moment, and that's due to be completed by April of next year. So that's all the cameras and the signage. So you will start to see those going up, and we will be publishing a map with all of the camera locations as well. Like I said, the application window for exemptions and incentives is due to open in the beginning of next year, around about January. It should be open for a period of 3 months through to the end of March, early April. And then from there, there'll be a significant amount of investment going into a 100 Days to Go campaign. So again, it's about the clean air zone is coming, you need to be ready. And this is where to find it. And that concludes my presentation. Are there any questions?
One of the questions that I went to another conference where there was the question where there was a coach operator. They're having a real difficult time in normal business anyway. There's not, due to the changes in the way people travel on holidays and what have you, they're not so busier like they used to be. And so they were a big concern about the cost of conversion. And they say they can't even afford to pay existing costs, never mind the additional cost of the CAZ conversion. And they said if we don't do that, we'll be out of business, making people unemployed, families suffering, what have you. How does the council intend to deal with that?
Thank you. That's a good question. So earlier on, in terms of the mitigations package, like I said, there is £10 million that's available already for HGV vehicles. In addition to that, what Councillor Zafar has said before is that we want to support businesses in Birmingham as much as we possibly can. And if that money is not enough, he will go back to government and make the case for additional funding. Now, the only way we're going to find out some of this is the closer and closer we get, the more we see just what sort of impact the clean air zone is going to have. So we want to support businesses to make that transition as much as we want to support the residents of Birmingham to make the transition. But this is a journey that the whole city has to go on together. But the starting point for this is that there are 900 preventable deaths. There is a way for us to tackle that, and there is a way for us to address it, and we need to work towards it. So what I would suggest is that company and other companies like them, by all means, contact us, and through our business and enterprise team, we are more than happy to have that conversation about how we might be able to support them.
And finally, how do you intend to enforce it?
Enforce it? Okay, so there will be a ring of ANPR cameras around the zone. So those will be tracking movements in and out of the zone. So that the idea at the moment is that there will be a 7-day window before you make the journey, or 7 days afterwards in terms of making that payment. There will be a payment portal that's being created by the government, and individuals and businesses will be asked to sign those. All of the clean air zones across the country will be on that single payment portal. If people do not pay within that 7-day window, then there will be a PCN. Sorry, there was a gentleman at the back asked the question.
Yeah.
Basically, I'm mirroring my friend's concerns there. Home to school transport, minibuses, and there are a lot of them that will be working inside the CAZ. You're talking an extra £9,000 a year on the price. This will come out of the education budget. At the same time, one of the exemptions is people operating under Section 19, ring and ride, who operate illegally anyway for hire and reward. But you make an exception for them, and they're slaughtering us on the price anyway. So you need to look at that.
I'm more than happy to take that away. A lot of the basis for the exemptions that we're working to are things that are already set out in legislation, because we don't necessarily want to be creating brand new classes that are outside existing legislation, because that then potentially opens us up to risks of challenge. But if you have a valid concern, we're more than happy to take it away and look at it.
Okay.
Question here for this gentleman.
Just on the subject of payment, and is it a payment every time you pass one of the cameras, or is it a payment for a day or for a 24-hour period, or how do you intend to work that one?
It's a 24-hour period.
So if a coach comes in at 8 o'clock at night and goes 1 o'clock the following morning, it's only one payment.
It is.
Yeah. If it has to go through to the other side of the zone, through the Queensway, and then come back later on in the day, so it's going through the zone twice, is that 1 or 2 payments?
It's a single 24-hour payment, so it's,
Right.
it's moving within
many
that 24
times.
hours. It should just be one payment.
Right. Okay. Thanks.
Hi, I work with 3 operators who have got their operating centres
inside the clean air zone, and they've expressly asked me to come and ask you many questions about this. First, when you said about the exemptions, you said a maximum of 2 per operator. How is that maximum defined? So for instance, let's say an operator has 2 vehicles, will both of them have an exemption of a year?
At the moment, yes, but we also have had a number of expressions of can we look at the detail behind that. So we are actually looking at that as an exemption as to can we flex that in any way, shape or form, or do we provide additional support through the mitigations? Because again, at the end of the day, the exemptions are only there for a time limited period, because we want the vehicle fleet to convert. We want the vehicle fleet to be compliant, because ultimately that's our goal here, is behaviour change. So, probably the more effective way or efficient way of doing that is through looking at the mitigations packages and how we fund those, and there may be some flex there in terms of how we do that.
Yeah, well, unfortunately, the timescale you've given doesn't really help those operators, because from start to finish, one of them just spent £500,000 buying 4 new vehicles, and that took 8 months from start to finish. So the timescale you're proposing doesn't give them enough time to plan for that. No,
and again, we absolutely hear that, and as I was talking about, we also recognise some of the challenges with the retrofit market as well. So again, if there are options where we can say within the charging order that people have, or businesses, or however we define it, have an exemption for a period of time if they're on if they've gone into the buying process, then we're absolutely looking at that to see how we can work that.
Yeah, and that one operator who bought those 4 vehicles bought those vehicles because he was told it's going to be January of this year. So will he be able to have mitigation for that? And I think the other thing is just generally, say £10 million, but how many operators are there in Birmingham that are going to be affected, and how many vehicles? Is this really going to help? I mean, we're going to be talking barely anything, really, in terms of them, aren't we? Does it cover operators outside of the zone as well?
So there is some scope within the HDV fund to look at operators across the West Midlands. But again, this is where the conversation starts coming. Yeah, 10 million isn't going to convert every single non-compliant vehicle in the fleet across the region. But it's a start, and it's what we've been able to bid for. So, but like I said as well, if there is additional, if there is an opportunity for us to go back and look for and bid for additional money from government, we will do it, because we want to support business as much as we can.
I'm not too sure how many haulage operators there are in the West Midlands, but there's quite a few. And I've got a few more other things, but I'll go with one thing. You talk about retrofit systems. I'm sure you're aware in terms of the HGV, in the PSV market, there's been quite a demand for retrofit systems. But in the HGV market, there's only been one retrofit system. So are you going to take back any of what you just said? Because really, you're trying to sell us a bit of a pup. There's nothing there for HGV operators in terms of retrofit systems. There's one system for one variant of engine.
No, and I did say that as part of the presentation. That's why we've been doing the engagement with business as well, to understand how that market is broken down, so that we can actually help encourage the retrofit market to develop more solutions.
Yeah, I don't think that's going to happen. I think that's not going to happen either.
Well, we're making the effort because we want it to happen.
Okay.
Steve, just out of interest, I work for lots of haulage companies who run lots of lorries, so we have, over the years, we've tried to retrofit, and none of them actually work. They might say on the tin it works, but in reality, if you're going to do some actual testing, they don't do what they say. So there's somewhere between £9,000 and £12,000 to fit. We've already got an £80,000 lorry at £6,000. So I think it's like a bit of a no-go, really. But I think what the problem is and I know this is probably been thrust upon you by central government. I'm guessing it's not Birmingham's sole idea, is it? Because Manchester, Leeds. What's going to happen, I think, is that, just for instance, so I write the motor transport is like our trade magazine in terms of what we know. So I write the cost tables for the motor transport magazine each year, and the top 100 hauliers in the UK, I'm talking about the top 100. These are your Wincantons, your XPOs, your Jack Riches, your real big profitable boys who've been around a long time. The top 100 hauliers all earn under 3% margin. The thousands of other operators underneath that are probably making no margin. And I honestly think you've got, you're in a worse situation trying to get a Brexit. I think it's a massive task, and I think the 10 million set aside is absolutely a drop in the ocean. I don't think it's going to be anywhere near. God, I've worked for a company of some days where they're running lorries that go through Birmingham, Leeds, Birmingham. God, it'd be cheaper to park the lorry up, not run it. So I don't know where it's going to go. I think it's a nonsense, personally. That, I understand there's people dying, and I get all that, but there's been a lot of talk put on the actual deaths and the chest infections and stuff, but nobody's really thought this through. Because if you think 10 million would, you're probably going to spend £10 million on advertising, let alone. So the 10 million to fix the Birmingham operators, if you get all the other operators outside who come through Birmingham, I just find it hard to beggar's belief, really, that it's ever going to work.
So can I just respond? So I don't disagree. I absolutely don't disagree. You're absolutely right. Birmingham and Leeds are the two leading authorities on this at the moment, outside of London and their ULEZ zones. Greater Manchester, they'll be doing it. Sheffield, all of the cities will be doing something similar. So, and this is part of the challenge here as well, is that this is a national challenge and it's being delivered locally. And there are variations with each of the zones, which can be confusing, especially if you're operating nationally, because, what is the regime? I absolutely get that. But ourselves, and there's around about 100 city local authorities, work through a group called UK 100. So tomorrow there's an air quality summit down in London that's been brought together by Sadiq Khan. And one of the asks of government is that we need more money to do this. And we're talking billions to do this. Because it's not just your fleets, it's our fleet. Where do we get the money for this? We have an operating budget of £3 billion each year, but we don't have cash sloshing around to do this either. So I absolutely get, and I absolutely hear what you're all saying. We feel that pain as well, but we are having to do it. But we are going back to government. We are asking for more money, because if they want this to happen nationally, they need to put the money into it. They need to make this happen. And like I said, we're talking billions, absolutely billions. But NOx is only the first air quality challenge we will get. It will be PM 2.5 next. The government has already made clear that is next on their environmental agenda. So all of us, are going to have to think about that next, how we get ready for that as well, because that will be the next challenge.
I mean, I appreciate it's an impossible task you've got, but I just can't believe there's no kind of joined up thinking. So every region has a different plan, a different version, a different charger. There's no real joined up thinking, unfortunately. And I don't think the government have got these billions you're talking about to fund it. I think it's going to get talked about for years to come. Move on a date. Let's hope it does. But I in reality can't. Operators have got no more money to invest in the fleet. They can't make a bean as it is. They're all on their uppers. There's about 10 a week go out skint. Long established companies who can't keep up to even purchase Euro 6 vehicles, which you'd expect Euro 6 to be, the next thing. But it's an impossible task, and but thank you for the presentation. It's first class, but let's hope I'm around to see it to fruition, So.
No, and thank you for the time.
Yeah.
Sorry, did you want to ask a question?
I have a concern about how you're going to manage the A38 which runs through the centre of the city. Obviously, there's going to be no exemption vehicles using that. How are you going to manage the massive increase in traffic that uses the ring road? So you could have vehicles that would go through this, travel straight through the city on the A38, going to have to use the ring road 3 times the distance to get round the ring road to get back onto the motorway, creating far more noxious gases than if they went straight through on the A38. It just doesn't make sense. And it's going to be, the ring road is going to be gridlocked, absolutely gridlocked. And it's bad enough now.
So, that's a really good question, and thank you for that. What we've already seen from the impact of the ULEZ zone in London is that it's taken thousands of vehicles off the road, which helps actually the traffic flows. So through the modelling that we've done, that's what we're anticipating here as well. It will take vehicles off the road, which will free up those routes. That's the modelling, that's the expectation.
The older vehicles are going to go on the ring. You might take 50% of the vehicles off going through the city on the A38, but that 50% is going to go onto the
So like I say, all I can do is cite the example of what's happened in London. It's taken thousands of vehicles off the road.
Yeah. Okay. So I think we could be this could be another 3 years
for all
plus,
afternoon.
like bloody Brexit comes. So I think you've done very well, and I know you must be sick of hearing the same old questions. But thank you very much indeed.
No, thank you very
Thanks,
much,
Steve.
and thank you for giving me the time, and thank you for the questions. The more that we get the opportunity to talk about this and hear the concerns, so that we can take those away and try and do something about it. We're not going to be able to answer everybody's questions, and we're not going to be able to always give you the answers you want, but we want to be able to talk about this more and share more information about it.
Earlier, you had cars as being the biggest polluter, and you said that was a major problem. So why are you charging heavy goods vehicles so much more than cars when actually they're delivering the things that the city needs? Like, everything, basically everything comes in with heavy goods vehicles. So why is the charge so high for heavy goods vehicles?
Well, part of that will be to do based on the amount that is being produced and the volumes of the fleet and things like that. But yeah, that's
It just seems disproportionate. As that gentleman just said, you are targeting the haulage industry because essentially they will have to pay. That's what you're doing, and all you're going to do is you're going to drive prices up within the city because all the hauliers will just turn around and go, well, we're going to have to charge you more for that. And exactly the same thing happens in London now. Exactly the same thing. I just think it's completely disproportionate, particularly with the figures that you've given regarding cars. Surely it should be the other way around. Cars should be higher than lorries.
Well, yeah. In the consultation, there was a range of prices that we put forward, and actually, with all of the categories, we went for the lower end of that range. But
Well, you think the hauliers I represent have got 14 vehicles, so every single one of those is going to pay £50 a day. Plus they've got to completely reconfigure their fleet because their life cycle of their business is 10 to 15 years. So a lot of hauliers and operators within this area and within the zone now have gone from Euro 5 and now they're going to have to do it again. I don't understand why it couldn't have been more of a regressive thing, so you could have said like 19, no Euro 3, Euro 4, Euro 5, Euro 2, rather than doing this, because even with the timescales you've given, hauliers just will not be able to change their fleet, they just haven't got enough time.
yeah, the driver in terms of timescale is the government directive that was placed on us, and it's the same for all the other cities, and it's compliance by 2021, shortest possible time.
I've got emails dating back over a year with the auditor, and all of them are very vague answers, and all giving the same answers as you did a year ago. So, as far as I'm concerned, say my vehicles, I've got 10 to purchase. I've got 8 months, so I don't know how many exemptions I'm going to get. I don't know what I'm going to get from you. So how can a business plan that? Is it possible?
I don't disagree with everything you're saying.
No, I think it's a bit. So I think we've done it to death. I think.
Yeah.
I mean, Steve hasn't got all the answers, and I think he's just quit himself admirably to give us, and I think it's been well received or not received. But I think we've got to end it there because it could be on forever to this. But well, thank you, Steve.
No, it's no
Thank you very
problem.
much.
Thank
indeed.
you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, that about concludes today's conference, I think. So, a couple of things. I'd like to thank you all for attending. I hope you found it beneficial. I hope you got some good facts and figures to take away with. I'd like to thank Invergold for funding it for us today, which has been very good of him, very generous of him. Thanks to the catering staff if they're around, and thanks to the people from the chambers here who've supported us in terms of getting people in and out. So, and thank you to all. Have a safe journey, and do not forget your questionnaire forms if you don't mind. Many thanks.